Hello, friends. Welcome to Empowered to Thrive. I am your host, Kareen Powell, and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here and to support yourself. I am here with you in mind, with you on my heart. My mission is to help you create a life that you love, to be able to live as the most beautiful, truest version of you. So often we start out life being ourselves, and then we learn through either being ignored, being shushed and shamed, or by observing how the people closest to us or society as a whole operates. And we start to lose the truest parts of us. Maybe we conform or we suppress ourselves or we try as we might, but there are people who do not like who we genuinely are. And so it becomes easiest over time to stop fighting that battle. I'm here to remind you it is worth the fight. Yes, it is effort and work to live as yourself. And it has always been, and it always will be. And the payoff is worth it. There is no joy that can replace the satisfaction of showing up as you with confidence, with ease, with joy. And some people may not feel like it ever becomes easy. I am someone who definitely feels like it has gotten easier over time. And many times it feels easy. Sure, there are other times it doesn't. It feels difficult. I choose. And I choose again to show up as Kareen, putting aside the voices that say I shouldn't, or I should do this instead, or that's a little bit too much. Why do you have to be like that? Consider this perspective. And there's nothing wrong with considering. But considering is very different than being demanded to agree to a different perspective. I think we all should consider different perspectives, but I don't think that means we have to become what someone else thinks we should be. And so, welcome. That's a taste of the authentic me. You felt my passion. You heard the fire that drives what I do. The reason I establish change radically, the reason I show up every time I show up is because of that. I have learned that I want to be me and I will put in the effort and I will do the hard things to be me. And you have the same opportunity. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about a subject I've been saying I'm going to talk about, but we really haven't dived into it here on season 10. And that is being Christian, wanting to be a part of a church community and not feeling like you fit in or belong, not really knowing how to come to peace with the internal struggle. And I do just want to give you a quick backstory for those of you who haven't heard yet. I grew up in an evangelical Christian church. I grew up very aware of the spirit world, but there wasn't language for it where I grew up, and many parts of me were suppressed. And so at this point in my life, I still am a part of a church community, But it's not because I agree with everything there. It's not because I always feel like I fit in. There's still an inner conflict. But I also can't get away from the fact that the way that I spiritually connect with the spirit realm and and even with some of the other people in that space is very special for me. It's empowering, it's life-giving. Many of us know how music and dance and rhythm is healing, how we discharge energy from the body, how we connect with other people. And that's why artists and musicians and creatives matter so much and have such an impact on the planet and on society. And a part of what I experience in a church worship setting is that we sing, there's rhythm, the drums. I dance and move. I shout and clap. I twirl. These are somatic ways that we discharge the stored stress from our body. There are somatic ways we're healing our body from the trauma it's experienced. And a lot of that occurs when I'm in church worshiping. And so sometimes for me, I think of it as this other healing space. And could I experience that in a different setting? Oh, sure, I could. But it's also a place I am experiencing it. And then there's another piece to that spiritual component where the divine connection that I have with the divine that is surrounding us, the source of life, the source of love. I don't even have all the words. Some of you might really have language. You might have studied things that I would say, yes, yes, yes. I know that because I've experienced it. I just don't know in science or in the textbook how to articulate that. But because I know what I've experienced, that drives me. And for friends or acquaintances or just people I run in contact with who have also deconstructed their faith and that has landed them outside of a church community and they don't desire to go back to it. I respect that. In some ways, I can understand it. In other ways, for me, it is different. I deconstructed my faith and I still am, and it leaves me questioning things. It leaves me uncertain of things I was certain of before because I was told to be certain of them, because I was conditioned to be certain of them. And I think it's very healthy and important for all of us to question. Because if we're afraid to question, then my question would be, what are you afraid of? And what are the people telling you not to question afraid of? So it's been a difficult 10 years. I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. You know how time goes. But I'm glad for the journey. Yes, I've changed, but we're meant to change as we go through life. Things don't stay stagnant. We move forwards, we move backwards. We're not staying stagnant, whether we think we are or not. And my heart is for those of you that are starting to question the practices, the beliefs, the ways you were taught to think and look at life, the stories that you were told, that you created, the lens you saw life from. My heart is to sit with you and invite you to be uncomfortable, to still question those things, and to leave your heart open as you do, which is risky business. And it can feel more painful. It can feel scarier. There's a beauty in it though, because oftentimes we think there's one person that deserves our hate, deserves our anger, deserves whatever emotion we're feeling inside of us. And I'm not here to say whether or not someone deserves that, but I also think it's okay to have those emotions be released and be felt and not have to target someone or something. The church and people that are religious, people that are spiritual, there's always going to be things that we can disagree on, things that we can be upset by, things that are plain wrong and two-faced. But that's not just in religion and in the church. That's humanity. So I think it's important to come to terms, but this is a natural part of life. This is how people will be. This is what will happen. Yes, people will say one thing and live a different life behind closed doors. I think it's awful. I hate it. But I also know it's not just in the church. It's not just in religion. What I think is disgusting is when we bring love, the name of God, the divine, into these patterns that are destructive. And then we mingle the two. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Keep what is holy and pure out. Like, let that be. And do what you have to do, but don't intermingle the two. Personally, I get fired up about the idea that sometimes people just want to make society better. Oh, if you're a kind person, it benefits society. And my question is, are you being kind because you want to be, you genuinely are, or because someone told you you should be? Someone held the door open for you and you said thank you out of habit, perhaps, but you weren't grateful. You didn't think about the fact that they held the door and you didn't have to. They paused and waited. They considered you. For instance, think about people that pray before they have a meal. They express thanks or they ask that the food benefit their body and do them good and not harm. I've got no issue with that. My issue is with the idea that that is necessary and right. And then the people doing it are doing it without thought and heartfelt intention. Are we grateful and do we realize what we have? If we're eating a meal and someone picked the veggies from the ground and then they got to our table and we're eating meat, perhaps, and so there was an animal that was alive that was sacrificed, and we're benefiting from that. There was someone who prepared the meal, someone who worked so that we could finance buying the food. Okay, there's a lot of components. I'm only touching on some. And I think it's really important if we're going to sit there and say, "Oh, it's only right to thank God, to pray before you eat." then let's really do something heartfelt. Let's embody what we're doing and not just do it out of habit, out of tradition, because somebody told us we should, because we feel guilty if we don't. Whew, that idea of doing things like going to church because you'll feel guilty if you don't. Here is your invitation to start sitting with things that once you felt like you should do. You had to. It was the right thing. I think there are things that aren't for us to do, things that are inappropriate, things that are just plain wrong, cruel. I'm not saying we should disregard any sense of guilt or an inner knowing. I don't think that's for me to do. I think I should do this. What I'm suggesting is we have to start getting comfortable with things that make us uncomfortable. For those of you that have been told you always need to read your Bible, you always need to pray, you always need to go to church, you always need to give money to the church, you need to tell other people about Jesus. I don't know. If you grew up in an evangelical Christian church, you could add to that list. For example, hey, here's one. I've always been comfortable. Maybe I shouldn't say always because somebody, people could pin me on that. I knew when you weren't. Okay, but hear my heart, okay? For a lot of my life, yes, there are times I was steeped in religion where I was rigid on some things and I wasn't comfortable with them. But the majority of my the who I am sincerely has always been comfortable and okay with people swearing. Okay, I think language evolves as culture evolves. Words that we consider swear words now were appropriate words in the past. And language changes over time. So whoever deemed certain words inappropriate now, I don't think that makes them wrong to say or quote unquote sinful. So as I am just showing up more vulnerably and more true to myself, it means that I'm letting myself swear more around you listening. And out of respect for those of you that are uncomfortable with that, I wouldn't have done that in the past. I still respect people who don't choose that type of language. I also don't think it's wrong for me to use it some. And I certainly don't think it's sinful. But recently, someone brought up to me how basically we all sin. So, yeah, I mean, swearing's something you do, and we all sin. Okay. We have a list in the church of these sins that are greater than others. And we are not bringing in and leveling the playing field for all the ways that people in their heart are cursing other people. We're targeting certain words that have culturally been labeled as inappropriate. And some people are saying if you use those, you're sinning. So you should stop using those. When so many of us are not looking at our hearts and actually sitting back and reflecting on the ways that we interact with people. There's so much judgment going on out there. And who's calling that out? Now, I mean, I know there are people and places who call things out. But if you've been in the church all your life, like I have, there is so much that goes on that doesn't get on that short list. of the abominable sins. And I'm just done with that. I've been done with that since I was a kid. I've always been someone who's like, why are we putting certain things on a list and calling those more sinful than other things? So, anyways, I hope that as you're hearing me ramble on, clearly this is something that not only am I passionate about, I just haven't had a lot of spaces where I've expressed how I truly feel about these things, but I feel them deeply. My hope is for you that you will stay around. And please reach out because if you have questions or you're on your own deconstruction journey, you're maybe a part of a church community or you were and you're not sure if you'll ever go back to it, or you are right now, but you just don't feel like you fit in, please send me your questions or your comments because those will help fuel the conversation that we have in the future around this. If any of you are interested in joining me on the show to have a back and forth conversation about anything around this, I'm here for that. Totally here for that. So, as sometimes with me in my episodes, I don't always know, like, what was my point? Did I make a point? Did I just express my thoughts? I'm giving myself permission to just express my thoughts. I really am here for those of you that are like, oh my gosh, she's saying things that I think or I've needed someone to say and I haven't heard them. And for you to know that you're not the only one. And it is possible to not agree with everything and still participate. It is good to be yourself, even when who you are is different than the people you're around. And there is so much more that is bubbling up out of me, but I want to wrap this episode up. I don't want to get it too lengthy. So, as we close, I want to remind you that your uniqueness is beautiful and it's so important that you display it, that you show it, that we get to experience you for who you really are. Because there are going to be those of us that love you so much and like you so much when you're you. So it's so fun to get to see the true side of people when you're like, oh my goodness, they're my people. And out of fear, sometimes we don't show that. And I understand it, but I'm just saying, like, join me. Join me in this season where I'm trying to show up and let you into more of who I am and just be Kareen. And yeah, it's risky, it's scary, it hurts. People misunderstand, people come at me. Like, I'm not making that stuff up. People come at me with things, and it's like, if I'm not afraid of that, I'll keep walking this path. In years past, I wanted to do this. And the outside voices and the comments and everything just shut me down. And it takes time and the healing journey is layered. And so here I am in a different space, a little bit different than who I was in the past. And I'm like, yeah, they can come at me with stuff. It's okay. It's not like I love it, but I need to show up as myself because those of you that there's this little mantra I've been saying lately because it hit my spirit one time, and I was like, yeah, there are people who have been waiting for me to show up as me. There are people who need me to show up as Kareen. And I believe that with all of my heart. And I believe it about you as well. There are people who have been waiting for you to show up as yourself and people who need you to show up as you. You are such an asset to society. And so when you're hiding or suppressing parts of yourself, we don't get to experience the fullness. And the fullness is beautiful. And that's where we're going to end it. Yeah. Are you hearing other thoughts right now? Are you hearing other voices of the people you grew up around? Other thoughts that are like, no, if you show up fully yourself, that's not beautiful. Mm, I get it. You get to decide whether those intrusive voices, whether those voices that are so familiar because you've heard them so much, get to dictate how you live your life. But remember, alongside of those intrusive voices is mine saying, I want you to be yourself. Put me to the test. I will say it's beautiful. All right. Much love, my friends. Chat with you again soon.